Okay, hi everybody, and good evening here, or it's close to night actually, here in Finland, about 11 o'clock at night, and we're starting 8 p.m. GMT, and this is our pre-Scorpio, pre-full moon webinar. We've been doing so much with Scorpio lately. Tuya had an ingress meditation today, and I broadcasted a Scorpio solar fire ritual, and it's all because the ingress into the sign is occurring just about at the same time as the full moon. Our full moon, I've listed it quite many times in the chat box by accident, and you'll find that tomorrow in the afternoon, which is GMT 3:15 in the afternoon and 6:15 in Finland, we're beginning our full moon broadcast, and it's going to be around the actual full moon at 4:45 GMT, and maybe a few seconds. You can see there, whatever it may be, and so we've had really a lot of wonderful information and thought about Scorpio. So we'll see if I have to add too much to that, because the full moon is coming tomorrow, and a full moon important for all disciples. If we really want to look at it, Scorpio is the sign of discipleship, and all of the tests of discipleship and the conflict with duality, as it is said, we've gotten beyond the stage of being the monster. That's the early stages, where we're identified with the appetites of the lower personality, and we're really like the Hydra ourselves, and we've gotten beyond that, so that we are at least fighters, and those who are engaged in a conflict that is a pull between the tendencies of the soul and the personality. And I don't really know many people who are free of that particular battle. But then a higher unity is achieved. Just look in your esoteric astrology book on page 333. A higher unity is finally achieved, and we manage to identify on the soul level and beyond, even on the intuitive level, where the human monad is primarily expressing. So great opportunities exist here at the first, second, and third initiations. Particularly, the peculiar testing quality of Scorpio is felt at the first, second, and third initiations. But at the fourth initiation, I've noticed sometimes in the charts of those people who are either passing through the Arhat initiation or very close to it, or who had just succeeded, that Uranus was in the sign Scorpio. I mean, I think there were 3 that were like that: Krishnamurti, Francis Bacon, and Sir Thomas More. All of them, either at the 4th degree or beyond. So there's something very transformational about the use of the sign Scorpio in a different way than at the first 3 initiations. There's a great transformation which is occurring, a great elevation and a lifting up. Uranus is so important there because it's a lifting up into the cosmic ethers. And the cosmic ethers, they are consisting of these 4 planes on the cosmic physical plane, and our first destination really is the Buddhic plane, which is ruled, in a sense, by Scorpio and by Mercury, the star of intuition, in a way, and also by Jupiter and Neptune. Well, we're not that far yet. The masters are focused in that way, but we can learn to be focused in that way. And eventually we will become true and full members of the hierarchy, and the ashrams, so many of them, are found on this intuitive Buddhic level. So our task here is to really use the Mercury part of Scorpio to build the Antakarana, that rainbow bridge, that bridge of light, into the higher ethers, and then begin to bring the higher ethers where our true spiritual life exists down into our lower personality expression and even into what we call our soul expression on the higher mental plane. So this is a great sign of real accomplishment, and the struggle. Well, we know that humanity, a fourth-rate kingdom in a way, is struggling intensively, and right now it's facing, during the last century and this century, facing a very major battle with its own dweller on the threshold, and nothing could be more scorpionic than that particular battle. Now, the Black Lodge, too, and the forces of form and materialism, they can use that Scorpio energy to reassert the power of the dragon, the nine-headed hydra, with all of those vices that hold us in place and don't allow us to ascend into our true birthright in this second solar system, our true focus, which should be in the cosmic ethers and not down here on the lower levels, which is the cosmic dense physical body of our planetary logos and solar logos. We should be beyond that, and we're learning how to be beyond that if we care enough and are willing to fight the good fight and are willing to kneel in humility. Tuya today read the story of the labor of Hercules. I think the Tibetan had stopped writing by that time because Alice Bailey had passed on, and then others took over, and it was a mythologist by the name of Francis Merchant, and I think he did a pretty good job there in describing the Scorpio labor. And the impression that came to me so strongly in Scorpio: we rise by kneeling. It's an anticipation of the humility needed in Capricorn for true initiation, where in a way we have to make that pilgrimage on our knees. And if you go into any real lodge where the true values are being presented, you have to stoop low in order to really enter the lodge. So the idea is that there is humility required, and we really are learning the lesson of humility initially in Scorpio and combining that with Capricorn. And the interesting thing is about those two signs that they are so much used by the counterforce in a negative way, and yet they are signs, the rulers of which, Mars and Saturn, really bring us into the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. So, when you're born with a very strong Scorpio and or Capricorn, it's not an easy life, and but the potentials for real achievement are very, very high. So, warrior I am, or am I? Depends about when you want to be poetic about it. Warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. So often, when we're dealing with the sign Scorpio, we may run the other way and say, oh, the moon's in Scorpio for these couple of days, watch it, and inevitably things do emerge from the lower depths, but the opportunity for triumph is very, very powerful. So you see here that the orthodox ruler is Mars, and the esoteric ruler is Mars, a kind of a higher Mars. Mars stands for the entire personality and every vehicle in it, except perhaps the etheric vehicle, which is the host to all the energies. And then finally, Mercury, the hierarchical ruler, and triumph does take place through humility and through an ability finally to receive the intuitive input of the intuitional plane, and even one day after the fourth initiation or around that time, to be able to focus intuitively on the Buddhic plane. Over here we have, some of the conventional ideas. Let's just say that Joffre was a wonderful illustrator, artist, and he had kind of he didn't exactly have the Tibetans leaning, but he had a lot of the seventh ray, it appears, and he has managed to bring forth quite a number of the symbols that are significant in the sign Scorpio. Uh, let's see, wait a second. I want to make this a little brighter, at least for myself. So, we have like the idea of death and rebirth, and we have the babe and the skull. This is the sign of death, but also a sign of a true rebirth into higher life, and oftentimes through a process of alchemy, which is indicated over here on the right-hand side. And there is your vessel and the elixir of life, which you can drink in this sign, especially if you're a master and really know how to do it. I guess what do we have here? A kind of a dodecahedron with pentagons on the side. It shows so much about the life of the soul. Now, the scorpion is the usual symbol here, and it's a poisonous creature, and it defends itself, powerfully against those who would step on it and those who are intruding. And it has kind of an ultraviolet light. It kind of shines in the dark, interestingly, at night in the desert. And let's just say that it needs to put something to death. Now, the idea, what do you put to death? Basically, the 7 deadly sins, you put them to death, or you put the 9 heads of the Hydra to death, or you somehow transform their nature into something that is more useful for elevating the human being. Last night in the solar fire ritual, the idea is that each head of the Hydra can be transformed into a higher counterpart, which is really useful for the human being in the process of elevation up into the cosmic ethers. And the thing is, you're really dealing with heavy things here with the 9 heads of the Hydra and with the scorpionic tendencies. And the old saying is that if a scorpion can't find okay, someone got multiply active there. Okay, so that if a scorpion can't find something to sting, it will sting itself to death. And there you have the suicidal kind of tendency. Now, in a way, we are putting the lower self to death, or trying to raise it into a higher correspondence of itself. So the idea of suicide to the personality has a kind of a spiritual connotation as well. Well, we don't have to merely remain a scorpion. One day we can fly as the eagle flies, and we see that in the background. And this shows, again, the relationship between Scorpio and Capricorn, in which the last of the extra zodiacal constellations is Aquila, the eagle, which represents high initiation and transcendence. So the power of triumph and elevation is always there as long as there is sufficient humility. Here's St. George. He's fighting the proverbial dragon. It's another way of looking at the Hydra or the Scorpion. And, there's the lower dragon and there are higher dragons. The interesting thing is that each planetary logos is called a dragon of wisdom, and a master is called a lesser dragon of wisdom. So we have, and then when you look in the sky, we emphasize this today in the ingress meditation, we had Draco, and also last night, Draco, that great constellation, which is cosmic kundalini in a way, and also has a lot of the cosmic buddhi, which it sends through the Pleiades. And it's a huge constellation and extremely powerful, and that's the greater dragon from which so much of the power we need in our local cosmos system is drawn. So serpents and dragons aren't all bad, and one day, hopefully, all of us will become a lesser dragon of wisdom. Out here in the background, well, you see, it's a very desert, kind of climate. Let's just say when you consider Pisces and you consider Cancer, you think of the ocean, you think of rivers, you think of large bodies of water. But Scorpio, the water is kind of frozen in a way, or just not there. So it's the least, in a way, the least watery of the water signs. And the yogi is out there in this desert area, having denied himself so much of normal life so that he can build up, excuse me, I got to get this out of my eyes. He can build up his transcendent powers. And when we're talking about Scorpio, it is all about building the inner powers that are resident within the human being. So in fact, the Kundalini can rise, the man can be totally regenerated, and we can fulfill our higher spiritual potentials, which are just so latent in most of us because we don't have either the knowledge or the courage to really do it right. So this is not a well, when St. Paul said, he said, he wasn't a vegetarian, I guess. He said milk for babes and meat for men. And this is a pretty meaty sign, if you will. It deals with blood and with the life aspect and the life and death conflict. And so, for all of us disciples, which will we choose? Now, obviously, people like ourselves, we want to choose the life aspect. And we go a long way to rise on the side of life. Others are choosing the left-hand path, and they don't realize it, but it leads to, endless death, as it is said, at least within the confines of a particular solar system. So let's see if during this time of Scorpio, we can make some significant elevation, some significant conquest of some habit or some fault, or some difficulty, some vice, something holding us, that we can conquer at least one such and find ourselves in a position of increasing freedom. Now, excuse me. Francis here has shown. What I'm going to do is suggest that you go to the Moria Federation website. I think that's it, BL, isn't it? That's where Francis's illustrations and commentaries are found.
Yes, okay. Under the esoteric astrology tab. I'll put it in the chat box.
Excellent. Well, here is, go there to read the full thing that he's written. Now he's on to other things, of course, and, some of it was sacred geometry, and then now it's the story of the secret doctrine, which is so well worth attending every month. So I hope you're able to take in his webinars. Here is the picture of the man as the phoenix bird, the firebird, and he has much on the sacred geometry of that, but we all learn how to rise in our fiery essence and become and go through the first stage of resurrection as the firebird. Now, this is almost like beginning to enter the Deva kingdom. When you look at a planetary logos or a solar logos, they're a heavenly man or a grand heavenly man, but they are also equally the Deva. There's a blending of the man and the Deva. And so at the fourth initiation, we learn how to really fly, you might say. As a firebird, as a monadic essence, we begin to ascend and travel the rest of the way as the volatile essence, the flying essence, the essence of the monad. Maybe sometime, listen to Igor Stravinsky's Firebird Suite. It's a magnificent piece of music, and he seems to have captured something there about what it really means to be a phoenix, to rise from the dead, to rise from the deadness of our ordinary consciousness and ascend into the heights of the cosmic etheric consciousness and even beyond. So we're all going to earn our wings at some point. You know, every elemental can become a deva, and every human being can incorporate a higher devic part within his or her consciousness and abilities. They fight on the astral plane, and they harmonize on the Buddhic plane, and they become one on the monadic plane, the humans and the devas. So they become the divine Hermes Aphrodite, divine hermaphrodite, and this is the destiny, before all of us here. And so, this is a time for triumph and ascension, and a kind of resurrection out of the tomb of encapsulated consciousness encapsulated in the lower vehicles. Pluto is involved here, never killing the consciousness, but maybe killing the form which holds the consciousness captive. Now let's see if I can find another one. Okay, it's got to be somewhere else. And normally I know exactly where these things are. It's the picture of there it is. Picture of the man ascending. He has drowned. He is the ancient one. And he has died to all of the lower attractions and ambitions. His nature is there beneath his ascending form. And the old man is gone. And now we have the man who really is ascending onto the fixed cross, and the symbol here of the winged heart is so very, very strong. It's one of the crosses, and Scorpio, well, how does it go on the fixed cross? I think it's the cross of blinding light. Now that's Taurus. Fiery pain, that's Leo. Bitter woe, that's Scorpio. And liberation, that is Aquarius. So if we're willing to pass through the bitter woe of relinquishment, and I guess the fourth initiation is really where you earn the wings on your heart, so to speak. You become the flying heart. It's a bit like the phoenix, isn't it? His heart has wings. We see that. Then we are liberated from all the Maya, all the illusion, the dragon, the lower dragon, the 9 heads of the Hydra. We find our place on the plane of air. And in the plane of air, you need your wings, don't you? So we get this capacity to fly all over the planet. Our consciousness can fly all over the planet. And we learn something about omnipresence and participation through identification in the lives of many, many forms, in the existence of many, many forms of life. So this man is in process of elevation and resurrection. And let's always remember with Scorpio that triumph, elevation, resurrection, rising out of the lower depths through a fiery process, these things are characteristic of the higher expression of Scorpio. Okay, well, Francis has said a lot of beautiful things, and just go there, and if you haven't read what he's had to say already, here it is in the chat box, and BL has put them there. All right, and also you'll see the time for the exact full moon moment tomorrow. 4:45 and how many seconds? And 5 seconds. 4:45 and 5 seconds GMT. All right. Well, you get the idea. Scorpio is a tough sign. It's an exciting sign. It's something that all disciples have to learn how to master if we're going to achieve the higher unity. It's not a sign to run away from, even though it has some tough experiences. This is where we show our true mettle. And finally, we conquer not through Pluto and not through Mars, although they are necessary as well, but we conquer through humility and through the power of Mercury to raise us up into the intuitional level where the ancient hydra of sin cannot breathe, it cannot thrive in the higher air. So let's do our best to become, through the building of the Antakarana, intuitive beings who can somehow learn the nature of the cosmic ethers and thereby escape from and help others escape from the dense physical body of the planetary and solar logos, only returning to those areas for purposes of service, as the hierarchy now does and as the Christ now does. Okay, now let's see what we have. We have probably a meditation, and there it is. Okay. Excuse me. So, a little less than 24 hours we have, really. Not so much time. And boy, that's, if you ever have a chance to go there, I don't know what just happened, but I saw a beautiful, go to page 284 and 285 of Discipleship 2, and you'll see what liberation is really all about. Some of the highest sentences and thoughts ever written down by the Tibetan are found here, and they're even older than the stanzas of Dzyan from which the secret doctrine was taken. So I love that page, and maybe you too will be attracted to it. It's marvelous. All right, so let's have our meditation. So this is our, we're in the days of preparation, and we've been doing, Tui's been doing this sacred pentagram approach that the Tibetan is recommending, but not on the day of the full moon. I think, we'll just do the meditation, but on the 2 succeeding days, we'll continue with the sacred pentagram approach. The pentagram, always the symbol of the soul when it's in the upright position. Okay. So we're heading into the day of safeguarding, which can begin some 12 hours before the full moon. So early, at least here, early tomorrow morning at about 7:45, our day of safeguarding is beginning, 12 hours before the full moon. And for GMT, it would be 4:45 in the morning GMT. Okay. So we're going to begin by pulling back, pratyahara, withdrawing our consciousness from the ordinary personality focus. I have a body, but I am not that body. I have my feelings and emotions, but I am not them. I have a mind, but I am not that mind. What then am I? And we can say it first, I am the soul in incarnation. So we are the observing consciousness, and were the physical body to drop away, we would still be there, and were the collection of many desires and longings to drop away, we would still be there, and if the many thoughts of the concrete mind were to drop away, as inevitably they do, we are still there. We are the observer, the consciousness, subtle, and it's as if we enter into the level of light, love, and sacrificial will of the higher mental plane. And where is that plane? Well, it's right here. It's just a question of a sufficient point of tension to have that plane and the causal vehicle revealed. And eventually, in our initiation work, that plane must be revealed, the higher mental plane. So the soul is group consciousness. It is aware of many other souls, especially the ones in its own group, by ray, let us say, and by function. And so, established as we are, we can imagine it, in this field of light, right here and now, this field of love, right here and now, this field of spiritual, sacrificial will, right here and now, we feel ourselves as if more truly a soul than we did when we were sort of trapped within personality consciousness. So we merge ourselves deeply in that sense of group soul, and we embrace other human beings, not so much as personalities, but as souls. And when we're, focused normally in life, we want to meet people as soul infusing personalities. And we, especially can do this with the men and women of goodwill who have a certain soul vitality, spread as they are all over the world. And with those even more powerful servers, the members of the new group of world servers, spread in different places in the world. And we feel our identification with them. But finally, if we can grasp it, there's not a human being in incarnation or out of incarnation who is not really part of our soul identity. The soul is individual in a way, but it is trans-individual in another way. And then the ancient mantra on the second ray, so easy to say and so hard to realize, naught is but me, really begins to make sense. Now, if you can work on that a little bit every day, overcoming the sense of difference, overcoming the sense of cleavage and of separateness, then real progress into being will be made. Naught is but me. The Antakarana work helps us with this. From the astral body to the intuitive body, this rainbow bridge of all the 7 major colors is found, and it passes through the area of the mental unit on the higher level of the lower mind. And DK says, well, draw into this area of the mental unit, draw personality power, draw it in. And draw down the energy of the 12 petals of the egoic lotus, imaginatively, since maybe through your meditation the first part of the Antakarana has been built, somewhat anyway. We draw in the power of the petals unfolded and unfolding. And from this extension of the monad we call the jewel in the lotus, we draw in that 7-fold energy, the will energy, until there are a retained pool of energies in the area of the mental unit. And the rainbow bridge is passing through that pool of energies. And the higher formative forces are molding the lower forces in the personality. And of the 7 colors, maybe 2 of them stand out the most strongly, the color of your soul ray and the color of your personality ray. And we imagine those colors extending into the spiritual triad. Maybe they're not yet really going to touch the monastic permanent atom or the Buddhic permanent atom or the atomic permanent atom, maybe not yet. But we imagine that on the way to the monad, but we'll use indigo as a general love-wisdom color, and we'll use an indigo note, or at least a blue note, to project a line of light from the mental unit along the bridge into the spiritual triad. And as we do that, we'll use the word of power with a second ray. I see the greatest light. And we'll sound on one of those blue notes, outwardly the Om, and inwardly I see the greatest light. So as you're singing the Om, you inwardly pronounce, I see the greatest light, as that line of light reaches and activates areas in the spiritual triad. Oh. And this will call forth a response from the higher aspects of our nature, and there will be an evocation, and from the formless world, relatively formless, there will be an impression from those states of consciousness that we normally don't touch. So we trust that these perceptions that are common to the higher worlds where the masters focus can at least make an impression. Maybe some intuition, some higher thought, maybe some impulse of the spiritual will, maybe, however, how very subtle, some notion of what pure being is at the heart of the monad. Because as we begin to practice this and do this with regularity, we're linking two worlds and two planes, really. We're linking the cosmic physical dense spheres with the cosmic physical etheric spheres. And that area of life which should truly engage our focus as members of this second solar system will begin to become more real to us. This is where the masters focus. They have, we're told, triadal consciousness, and we want to work with them. We want to declare our solidarity with them, and we offer them, therefore, our salutations. This is taken from kind of meditation that Master DK offered to his group. So we salute the masters and express our intention to work on their behalf and on behalf of the divine plan. So inwardly and with heartfelt gratitude, we offer our salutations to the masters and to the head of the hierarchy, the Christ. Salutations to the Christ, the master of all masters. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we most closely work. Masters M, KH, and DK. Salutations to the Master Moria, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master Kuthumi, the coming Christ of the age of Capricorn, the director of the great second ray ashram, which has most to do at this time with preparing for the reappearance of the Lord Maitreya. Salutations to the Master Joao Kuhl, who has given us the blue books and so much of the work with Blavatsky, and whose ashram is training aspirants such as we are for initiation. Salutations to your own master, as you know him to be or conceive him to be. Salutations to the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. So this is the area in which we wish to learn to work one day, and these days to at least receive some impression from these heights where the divine plan is really understood, so that we can play our little part in the expression of the divine plan. But there are deeper points of tension, and on the monadic plane and on the logoic plane, Shambhala can be found in its greatest intensity. We call it the center where the will of God is known. And so, as a little group, and with deepest reverence and in all humility, some sense of proportion, and identified together not as individuals but as a group soul, we imagine that we are in the radiation or receiving the radiation of Shambhala. somehow in a very attenuated manner, in the presence of the great Lord of will and power, Sanat Kumara. Because one day our lives and our group life must be driven by the spiritual will, the true will from on high. And inwardly and as a group, we're going to sound one long, silent Om to be as imbued as we can be with his energy of will and purpose, inwardly, silently. First, the plan reaches us, some little aspect of the divine plan, then some small aspect of purpose, then some attenuated expression of that immensely powerful, undeflectable will. So we keep the reverence, the humility, the higher awareness as much as possible as we go through our group life, our individual life. It's all under the divine will, the divine purpose, the divine plan. And at this time, we seek to touch the energies uniquely available through Scorpio. So it's as if we are a point of light, love, and power, all drawn together, not personalities, but a point of being, a point of consciousness, a point of mind. We all come together in that point. And a golden pathway extends into the heart of an indigo sun. And there we will meet the consciousness of Master DK and seek to learn from him as we encounter the energies we need to absorb and distribute. And we're all together in being, in consciousness, in intelligence, in sentiency, and the golden pathway begins to shorten and shorten, and we travel with it, we travel with it, we travel with it, until imagistically we see it absorbed within the indigo sun, and get the feeling of being within the indigo sun. And with Master DK, as it were, and as imagined outposts of his consciousness, we begin to touch the energies and qualities now available. We will be touching Mars, the energy of Mars, the giver of courage to face the outer opponent. Much need for bravery exists on the outer plane. And we will touch esoterically Mars as the courage to struggle for the sake of a high ideal and to confront the inner opponent, the dweller on the threshold, and its various aspects. There's no reaching that point of tension we call hierarchy without courage. And Mercury, its energies too are available now, the hierarchical ruler, conveying the power to be disillusioned, to see through illusion, because of increasing Buddhic illumination. We hardly realize how illusioned we are until we finally get out of it. And then we realize we've really been under the spell of illusion. And then, of course, Pluto is there too. Lately, we've seen some incredible images of Pluto, photographically taken by one of the space ships flying by. Amazing world. It's a special ruler, the Lord of Death, the King of Hades, conveying the power to destroy that which binds the inner consciousness to illusion, glamour, and Maya. It's a needed destruction. The thread of captivated consciousness has to be cut by the sharp shears of Pluto. All of this is available now as we confront these energies, receive them, understand something about them. First, let's look at Mars more in detail. How brave are we on the outer plane? And what are we willing to overcome on the outer plane so that the divine plan can manifest? And then, how brave are we to confront the inner enemy that's within us? And some of us don't even want to look at it, but it's there, and we have to be brave enough to fight the good fight inwardly. It's a first stage, and later the real solution will come. One day, the light of day will dawn, the light of Scorpio. So let's bring that courage of Mars into our inner life, into our outer life. Try to touch it. Try to breathe in the courage. The red planet and its courage. The wise battle. I'm thinking about that mighty fortress is our God, you know, Martin Luther, the great scorpionic first ray initiate, right in that song. There's so much about the courage of Mars. Let's bring it into our group, into our groups, into our individual life. Feel yourself imbued with the inner courage, the outer courage. Absorb that Martian energy, because we all need it. And we'll sound an ohm on the red note, which is a C, and imagine that we're being filled with this courage coming from this still non-sacred planet, but one which we definitely need to ascend out of entrapment. So may our groups and may our individual life express greater outer courage, inner courage, the willingness not to run away, but to face whatever foe it may be. Using the color red in the right way. Now, In the outer reaches of our solar system, not the outermost reaches, but still far out there, is the planet Pluto in relation to Scorpio, giving us the power of death, the power to terminate all energy patterns which suffocate the consciousness, stultify the consciousness. There are so many. So it's the death of death we're talking about, the death of consciousness, the power to kill that which kills the realization of the soul within our normal personal consciousness. And we can sever ourselves from the unreal. We can end illusion in one of its lower grades of expression. We're all so much the victim of illusion we don't realize it. And Pluto, he wears that helmet of invisibility. It can penetrate through the illusion. So not the death of consciousness, not by any means, but the death of that which kills consciousness. That's what we're talking about. So we'll use another note, a C sharp, for Pluto, absorbing its energy individually and as a group so that we can free ourselves from that which is killing our consciousness. It's the upward pointing arrow of death. He says that's the true symbol of Pluto. It's an arrow. And sometimes it's called the sharp shears, but it definitely cuts. It definitely rends. It definitely separates us from what is suffocating and negative. Finally, we will go to Mercury, the hierarchical ruler. There are so many aspects to Mercury, all the way from the very etheric and concrete, up through the sun of mind and the abstract mind and the transcendental mind and the nirvanic mind. But we're interested in the three minds which unite, particularly the concrete, the sun of mind, and the abstract mind. And maybe the intuition can synthesize them all. It can see what is this miasma called the dweller on the threshold. We can see through it when we have the right type of mind, the right type of intuition, transcendental mind, It's simply a phantom, not real. And from the point of view of the higher perspective, we can see it. So let us learn to build the Antakarana into the abstract mind and intuitive realm and absorb that perspective. So let us imagine that we kneel, as it were, in the presence of the intuition and absorb this higher perspective, in the presence of which the nine-headed Hydra will not survive in its present form. It will yield up its power to higher abilities. Let's absorb the higher mind, the transcendental mind, the son of mind. Let's absorb these from Mercury. And the group and we individually will be endowed with a type of perception that can see through illusion until the lower tendencies symbolized by the Hydra exist no more. And we don't even want to have them because we see through them. Their true illusory nature is revealed to us. So from Mars to Pluto to Mercury, all of them available now, we are able to achieve greater and greater degrees of freedom until we think of the great solar logos, whose fire is a consuming fire of love, our great God of love wisdom, in which each one of us as a monad finds a temporary home. We are all sun beings, and in this solar system at least, no matter what our rays may be, we have to express the power of love and the power of wisdom. So when we see the sun, let's remember that, the vehicle of a great solar logos, who is a heart center in a cosmic logos, and we are all aspects, all of us, aspects of heart. So let us see that love wisdom pouring through every planet and through all aspects of our being. In this solar system, we have to learn how to love. And that's the bottom line. Now the light of the brilliant constellation Scorpio shines forth. It's the light of day, intuitive day. And as DK tells us, this is the place where three lights meet: the light of form, the light of soul, and the light of life. A triple aspect. They meet, they blend, they rise. The light of day dawns upon us on the cosmic etheric level. Ruled by Scorpio in its Buddhic aspect. Scorpio bringing not only darkness but its opposite in the meditative process, illumination. So we begin to feel that Scorpio energy. We've touched the planets a little bit. We want that light. In that light we shall see light. We want the light that is going to be seen, the light of day. It's the light of the revealing intuition, transcending all illusion. And we imagine the Scorpio constellation. It's really quite brilliant. It has in it one of the largest stars, Antares. It's just huge. It's called the enemy of Mars, interestingly enough. Those are very powerful stars far away. And we're building towards our moment of the full moon. And each one can apply the mantra in his own way. So for a few moments, we're going to ponder the mantra for Scorpio, those planets, the fourth ray then, and also the first ray through Hercules. We're going to apply them to our own life as we think of the great constellation out there, but present right here. Warrior I am, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. Each one of us will have a different battle. And how will you achieve your triumph? Remember, we rise by kneeling. Warrior I am, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. What is the nature of our battle? How are we conducting this battle? In what would triumph consist? Warrior I am, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. All of us have a battle to win. Each of us does. It's different for each of us. It is specific. We know we have certain energies to work with. The fourth ray, the first ray. We have Mars, we have Pluto, we have Mercury. We have the constellation Scorpio itself. We have our soul, the solar angel. We have that connection to Sirius via Scorpio and Mars. We have the hierarchical life, which is possible for us. We're in that circle. that big blue circle, even if we're the lowly aspirant, we're in that circle. And our powers will be demanded now as never before. Warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant, and we in our group form, we emerge triumphant, and it is the hope that eventually and before long, humanity itself will emerge triumphant. These energies are real all the way from the one about whom naught may be said, in whom the zodiac of constellations is a heart in the head center. That means Scorpio is a petal in the heart and the head center, and down into the constellational chakras and into our 7 solar systems, of which our sun is one, our solar system. It has a particular connection with Taurus and Scorpio, interestingly enough. And into that heart center we call our solar logos, and through Mars, Pluto, Mercury, this scorpionic energy flows and into Shambhala and our monad and into the hierarchy and our soul and into our personality through the head and the heart and the solar plexus and the base of the spine. Warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. And all over the planet there are wars, but tomorrow is, well, it's today, isn't it? Here, anyway. It's United Nations Day, a great fourth ray organization. Scorpio, fourth ray, peace. And we can become inwardly warriors on behalf of peace, which is the descent of the archetype. So wherever there may be trouble that you are particularly noting, send now some stream of the conquering Scorpio energy into that place, into those conditions, and watch the change occur on the Om. And as we prepare for, well, tomorrow or today's, depending where you are, the full moon starting at 3:15 GMT. Join us for the service meditation with music and image that Tuya will lead into the exact moment of the full moon. Let us hold in our consciousness, warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. Let us build up our strength, build up our courage, build up our intuition, so that at length we may be triumphant, our groups may be triumphant, humanity eventually, all of it triumphant. And we will close our meditation with the sounding of the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, everybody, for being here, meditating in this pre-full moon webinar. And now we head for the actual full moon in less than 24 hours, beginning at 3:15 GMT tomorrow. So we hope to see you there if you don't have your own events that you'll be attending in person or on the webinars, whatever. Anyway, you're most welcome, and we will build towards that time as we think during our waking hours and maybe when we're asleep too. Warrior am I, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. Okay, you have your links, and tomorrow it's the usual YouTube link we've been using for all broadcasts. It's going to be a broadcast, not a webinar. So, lots of love, many blessings, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow. Okay, bye-bye now.